On the Security Weekly News, I try to scan and produce a quick look at some of the major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Aaron Leyland, Josh Marpet, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you'll look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now it's time for the Enterprise Security Weekly News. We have been joined by both Katie in the last interview. Hello, Katie. How are you?
I am well.
And Tyler also joins us for the news. How you doing, Tyler?
Just another Thursday, my friend. Just another Thursday.
It's never just another Thursday when you guys are here.
Well, we missed the intro, so what day is it?
It is National Work from Home Day.
Well, we
Isn't
got that
that
one under
every day?
control.
It's every day for us.
Isn't that every day? Yeah.
Okay. Appropriately, that fell on a Thursday on one of our show days. So I thought that was kind of perfect. It was actually my girlfriend spotted it. The website that I normally use didn't even throw that up as an option. So I got to
because it was like, that's not interesting. Everybody does that now.
None of them are interesting. They're all just marketing.
Some of them are interesting.
Ploys, most of them. Yeah.
It was National Chocolate Eclair Day on Tyler's birthday, and Tyler doesn't
we've
like.
Learned that Tyler. Yeah, we know what Tyler likes and doesn't like thanks to these national days.
It's not chocolate.
Right, and it was your birthday and National Eclair Day, so I mean, there's something there that's interesting.
Weirdo.
Okay.
All right. Anyway. So I'm trying something a little different with the news so that we can get through most of the news items. I'm cutting down on the number, you might have noticed. Just going to grab the most interesting fundings and acquisitions. And then I'm going to include when Mike Prevet, Return on Security, has a market update. I'm just going to link that in the show notes. So people who want to see like every single funding, every single acquisition that happens, his newsletter has that, and his market update's going to go through that. So I'm not going to drop each one of those in the show notes, and that'll save me time going through the show notes. And we don't cover half of them anyway. So this week we've got two big ones, two big late stage, which we haven't seen a whole lot of big late stage fundings in a while. We've seen a few, but I don't think we've seen two in 1 week. But we've got Huntress raising 150 million Series D, and Semperis with 125 million, which also seems like it should be a Series D, but they're calling it something different because it's less than the previous round, maybe.
Quite possibly. These are big boy rounds. Do you know the TLDR on what Huntress and Semperis do, Adrian?
Yeah, so Huntress goes after SMBs, and so they sell to both MSPs who service smaller companies, and then they service some of them directly themselves also. Yeah,
managed EDR and DR.
Yep.
Yes. So I often wonder with these guys how much money they make percentage of revenue wise on the managed versus how much they make on the product.
Yeah, I don't know, because they're saying they're close to 100 million ARR at this point. They say they're just shy of it. So there are a ton of MSSPs out there. If you do read these Mike Prevet emails, there's like 6 MSSPs being acquired every freaking week. So there's a lot of buyers out there for a security technology that's designed to be delivered to smaller shops.
We definitely missed something there. We could have done something 20 years ago in the MSSP space and kind of led the charge there. But yet another missed opportunity for you and I, Mr. Adrian.
Hindsight.
But hindsight's always being 2020. But you know what? At the end of the day, they have 300 million in, 309.8 million total invested. 300 is, they call it, what is 300 is the new 100 when it comes to IPO. So it used to be where everybody IPO'd or shot for getting to 100 million so they can IPO. Now you got to shoot for 300 million or the public markets reject you on IPO day. So,
really?
Yeah, that's what all the news articles are saying anyways. That's kind of
300 million in revenue?
Yes, that's kind of the
Oh,
latest buzz.
interesting.
Is 300 is the new 100. Once you get to about 300, then it's IPO time. So tough to know what the plan is. I mean, at the end of the day, you can always IPO. It's just whether the market will accept it or reject it and give you the money you're looking for at IPO time. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
they
these are both
mentioned a term
big
for
boy
that.
companies. Hopefully, they'll return value for the investors and the employees.
They mention a term for that. They call it a centaur. Represents a private company with 100 million in annual recurring revenue. I have not heard that before.
There's terms for everything. Rainbow unicorns. There's everything.
Well, I think part of the issue is that we're not seeing as many air quote unicorns as we were, a couple of years ago. So to keep the buzz alive, I guess media wants to make it more buzzworthy, right? And if you've got a company that's 9 years old and they're entering 100 million in ARR, that's a slow growth model. So I'm not saying that's bad. Just to be clear, that's not necessarily
No, it's
bad.
probably good. It's probably the opposite.
It's probably, sustainable growth. We can argue that back and forth. But
Lacework hit 100 really quick.
And then they hit rock bottom much quicker.
It all depends on the curve, right? Like right. If as an investor, if I'm looking at a 9-year-old company and the first 7 years were relatively slow and flat, and the last 2 years were astronomical growth, and they went from 20 to 100 in 2 years, like a straight up line, obviously that's a great investment, right? Because they figured something out. So it's not as easy as saying they got to 100 million in 9 years. Right. You have to look at the growth rates over time and things like that. Typically, if it takes you 9 years to get to 100 million, you're not having the massive growth rate, to get there. And it's it's a long slog. The thing that always scares about me when I start hearing companies in that 9 and 10 year mark is most of the early employee options are granted on a 10-year schedule, a 10-year cap, and then they disappear, they expire after a decade. So oftentimes companies have to find some kind of mechanism to get liquidity to those early shareholders within that decade. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe they did some secondaries here to get some liquidity for some of those early stock option holders. So tough to know.
Yeah, it's I was trying to remember what Katie, you mentioned Huntress pivoted. I was didn't they do something in endpoint before?
Yeah, their website says that they still do managed their platform. If you click on their platform, a managed EDR. And I know when I met with them years ago, pre-pandemic, obviously, because I haven't been to RSA since before the pandemic, they were just starting to get traction on this. They came out of pretty high-profile jobs. They wanted to do something. I think that their initial, and I could be wrong because it was a long time ago, but they were originally going for sort of that platformized threat hunting space, and pivoted a little bit to serve the market. When COVID hit, it might have been a good point for them to start looking at managed services because so many businesses needed it. Obviously, I don't know. I haven't been in touch with them since, like I said, pre-pandemic years.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to pull up some of my own old spreadsheets here. Got a bunch of old spreadsheets.
Adrian, for those that don't know, Adrian is the Internet Archive. He is our own personal Wayback Machine.
He needs that recall. If anybody,
he needs a second brain. He needs a second brain.
Yeah, recall wouldn't work here. I probably haven't looked at this spreadsheet since this computer was built.
So yes, but recall could do that for you.
Exactly. Come on, Adrian. And while you're looking that up, Adrian, I happen to just spill my gin and juice all over my desk. So there you have it.
Good job.
Well, that's what I get for trying to eat the grapes out of the bottom of the mason jar.
All right. Let's so Semperis I'm not as familiar with. But it looks like Identity I love everybody's using resilience now. Everybody's got resilience in the. It's becoming one of the new buzzwords.
Yes, protect your critical identity infrastructure from cyber attacks. Identity infrastructure.
Enterprise
with
identity
the industry's
protection.
most comprehensive identity threat detection and response (ITDR) platform for Active Directory and Entra ID. I have never heard of Entra ID. That's a gap in my knowledge. Have you ever heard of Entra ID?
Azure AD. It's the rebrand.
That's Azure AD?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called Entra. Well, there you go. TIL. Today I learned.
Yeah, they rebranded it a few months ago. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Now I don't feel completely stupid. So
maybe more than a few months. I mean, 18
easy,
months?
Adrian. It happened last week. Let's move on. It's an ITDR platform, Semperis. It sounds like something to me that the brand sounds like something the Marines would yell at each other. But overall, IT detection and response is a very hot area, right? I'm sorry, identity threat detection and response, ITDR. So yeah, really, really cool area. Good, congratulations on them for also a 9-figure investment, and great to see them growing.
Also a company that's about 10 years old. I used to write about them a few years ago. Work with them. Good people.
Yeah, Series D.
Identity is still
that
obviously
right.
really top of mind, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so the next one is interesting. NetSPI picking up Hubble. So Hubble, you guys know Hubble, right? Sounds like they would have competed with your former employers. They're describing themselves as cyber asset management.
It sure looks that way. The integration of Hubble's Asset Intelligent and CAASM product Aurora into the NetSPI platform.
Yeah,
I heard of them, but they were ankle biter while I was, I haven't been in that market since the end of 2022, and they were tiny little ankle biters, if I even remember them at all in that time frame.
Yeah, I'm thinking about our battle cards, and they didn't really. They were not a published battle card. Let's say that.
I left 18 months ago. I left that market 18 months ago too. So they may have grown, become a player in there. I don't know. I'm not going to say that they were tiny or nothing, but they weren't a huge player while I was there throughout 2022. But that space is an interesting space with the acquisition of Avalor, but now with the acquisition of the Hubble telescope here, with Hubble.
This is an area that makes sense. I don't know Hubble very well. I mean, like I said, they were a battle card that was unpublished, so sort of tracking them back when. But even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you could have predicted that the EASM and CAASM spaces would have come together. It doesn't make sense to have them be separate spaces, and eventually that space is going to go away too. Yeah. It's, rolling up.
Where does it go?
Where does it go? Threat exposure management.
ITEM?
CTEM.
CTEM. That's the one I was thinking of. CTEM, not ITEM.
Item.
I got my
what items?
I got my identities and my continuouses crossed up on that one. I meant CTEM. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that EASM folds into CAASM. CAASM is your state of all your assets from an internal and external vantage point. EASM is an external vantage point of the same asset states, right? So it makes sense that they roll together. And then what is continuous threat and exposure management is kind of, when you think about the definition of that, is just a continuous assessment of the external state, usually. Although I could be wrong, CTEM might also encompass internal vantage points as well. And if it does, is it just the exact same thing as CAASM, just a different term?
Kind of. I know Forrester's trying to, or at least as of 2-3 months ago, we're trying very hard to call it proactive security, which is just another couple of words for security.
Right.
Isn't it just CAASM with a focus? Where I think CAASM was very broad in the sense of it cataloged everything and let you figure out what to do with the data. CTEM feels more like a focused version of CAASM, where it's like we're going to look at the threats and vulnerabilities, an extension of vulnerability management in many ways.
Yeah, kind of less focused on the governance piece of it, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like it fits in well with NetSPI. So NetSPI is all about AppSec pen testing and AppSec assessments, secure code review, stuff like that. They have an ASM product. I don't know if they acquired somebody for the ASM product. They also have a breach and attack simulation product, which I don't recall. So, now I'm wondering how many acquisitions they've done. If they built up a lot of this stuff via acquisition. Yeah. Everybody goes to the keyboard.
Ding.
To Crunchbase.
We got Invisium, CAASM.
All I'm seeing on Gemini is Invisium and Hubble, but I know there's got to be more than that.
Okay, so Invisium is ASM, and then Silent Break security. Silent Break was pen testing and information security consulting. So it was a consulting firm that they picked up. And then Invisium was training, code remediation, assessments, mobile and web services. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like a service-heavy company as well. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it all makes sense. They've got a whole bunch of services and products that gather the information. It makes sense to have some place to put it, right? Like, it's why CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, everybody's got a data lake or a SIM or something like that. Like you start gathering all this information. Why not be the place where your customers also put all that data, right?
Yeah, I predicted this a while back that it's all about the centralization of data and the ability to analyze broader sets of data than ever before is the future of cyber. And to do that, I hated it at the time. I thought Avalor's use of the term data fabric was ridiculous at the time. Hindsight being 2020, I think it's well branded, right? It becomes the data fabric to your cybersecurity technologies. Hindsight's always 2020, right? I definitely make mistakes in there for sure. But so I think this makes natural sense, right? I'm actually a little bit shocked we're not seeing more acquisitions. I think at the end of last year and as we moved into Q1 of 2024, I was making the predictions that 2024 was going to be the year of massive acquisitions, frequent acquisitions, and we've seen an uptick. And at some point, I have to go do the research on Privet's data and take a peek at what the graphs actually look like for 2024 compared to year over year. But my gut tells me it's not the massive exit spree that we had hoped to see in 2024. Not quite yet. The buyers aren't buying yet.
It could be that it was just a bit early. That we're still maybe 6 months out or so from seeing that.
That's what I said last summer.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you out, man.
Hindsight. I'm good at making mistakes.
Yeah. By the numbers, mergers and acquisitions. 22 transactions in May, Privet's data is saying. In comparison, April saw 25 transactions.
Do they have year-over-year data?
No, just for 2 months.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it would be more. I thought I'd be seeing more, but hopefully the second half of the year we'll see that increase in pace.
Yep. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Yeah, so I put a few detection items in here because I think this is really important. We were talking about this with Marty Resch, where it just, and I even made it the theme of B-Sides Knoxville this year was detectives. So some of the speakers had like Sherlock Holmes type themes for their talks. Just because it seems like something that we're struggling with that we're going to have to get good at. And one of the things Marty was talking about is even back in the day, people would ask him, how should we set up Snort? He would say, turn everything off, and then just turn on the things that, specifically map to stuff that you have in your environment. It's kind of the same thing with a vulnerability scanner, right? Like if you don't have any Apache in your environment, why would you run those 3,000 checks, right? and then the important thing he said is just make up a list of things that should never happen in your environment and watch for those things. Things that should never happen that attackers are likely to do. And so I've been following the DFIR report for a while. I didn't realize this was a business. So not only do they have a report on specific threat actors, like ransomware threat actors, and all the things that they tend to do, basically their MO, but you can also buy detection rules from them. Like $15, you can get detection rules, and deploy them in your SIM. So they're actually they're doing the detection engineering, and you can pay them for it, which is pretty cool.
Detection engineering as a service.
Everything as a service.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. Really, and it's a newsletter. I recommend subscribing to that if detection engineering is something you do, or if you're interested in the different techniques that some of these threat actors use. I mean, it gets into as much detail as you want. Obviously, to be able to write these detections, you have to get down into those nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, that whole world often boggles me, right? Because everything goes through waves. I've been in cybersecurity since the 90s, and there was a period of time where everything was about vulnerabilities and finding 0 days. And then you kind of watch those tail off as far as, active threats in the wild. Those begin to tail off, and phishing becomes something super popular. And then that tails off, and the next, big thing kind of becomes popular. Now it's all about ransom. It's not even about the front end, about how to compromise them. It's more about, we've got that. We can do that a million times over. It's the ransoming side now that, ransomware as a service has become something powerful in the threat actor community. So it's interesting to watch the ebbs and flows of the threat actors over time, and what intrigues them and what gets them interested. For a while there, we had fairly significant nation state attacks on supply chain, right? Popping, and we had one just this week with Polyfill, right? That was essentially a supply chain attack. And I don't know if we have it in our list of things to talk about today, the Polyfill breach. And I don't feel educated enough to tell everybody exactly what it does, but it is embedding some kind of JavaScript into your website, and the company got sold to Chinese owners who essentially.
I can give you the deal on that because I spent.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, I just
app,
wrote
right?
a blog on it. The net is that at this point, so the DNS provider took down the site. So it was announced, I think, on Tuesday that there was, an exploit, and it was using redirection to send people to betting sites and pornography sites. So based on that, it was affecting over 100,000 websites, right? And yes, the Polyfill IO was bought by a Chinese company. I want to be super careful about saying, hey, they bought it to infect other websites, because there's nothing to substantiate that claim. And
it's
I know
implied. A lot of people are implying it and accusing that, but we don't know for sure. Yeah.
Which is why I'm being super careful, because we don't know. And there's a lot of speculation. And could it be? Yeah, of course. Could this be a nation state thing? Yeah, of course. But we don't know. And as of right now, Polyfill was just backing up a lot of really popular websites, and Google was like, oh, shoot. So they even started to take down anything related to Polyfill. Namecheap, the DNS service, took down Polyfill. So everybody was like, guess what? Problem solved. No more Polyfill IO. No more libraries. Nothing to worry about. And then reports started coming out that whomever, whether it was the Chinese company that now owns Polyfill.io or the threat actors who stole it, put Polyfill.io back up. So we're in a little bit of a state of flux, but it looks like at least the original DNS was wiped out. So how does that impact us? We'll see. But it is a quote unquote supply chain
correct
attack of sorts. And in this case, once again, we don't see any real damage done. Like if you're opposed to going to betting websites and pornography sites, not great. But then we've got something like MageCart, which is an example of something worse that could be done with this type of attack.
Well, what's interesting about this one, and the reason I bring it up at all, is that we had a period of time where supply chain style attacks against software were common. This is just one example of a supply chain style attack, right?
Right.
Over 100,000 websites were impacted by this. So this is not, a couple of companies that are now showing betting and pornography stuff, but over 100,000 of them were affected by this. So anyways, I bring it up in the sense that A, it's interesting current events, but B, it's also these waves we kind of go through when it comes to trying to track and understand threat actors over time. And, each of them is something that we kind of have to keep our eyes on, and we have to understand. And it's an arms race, right? This whole situation is an arms race, Adrian. When we really talk about the ability to protect, it's a moving goalpost scenario. And I've been at it for 25 plus years. And I've never, ever saw a state of security where I've been comfortable, right? And say, yep, we're in a good spot now, right? Because the minute you say that, they're designing some other new attack.
Yep. Well, oops. I am adding it to the show notes.
Excellent.
Let's see. This is...
Look at this, folks. He does it in real time. Adrian edits the show notes just for you to click refresh.
He's that
really
good, folks.
It would already be done. But weird. Okay. Let's see. So, if you don't want to chase the latest threat and you want to detect attacks, that's the next item here. So just nothing entirely new here. I mean, this is a blog post from Thinkst, who has had basically a fake file server that you can set up. Attackers love file servers. They love rooting through there, looking for stuff. And something that customers had been asking for is like we had a base set of files, of fake files that we could put on there. But you could use the API. You could create, however many files you want. You could put real files on there. You could do all kinds of stuff with it. But now they actually have like an industry specific choice you can make that the files, like the names of the files and the file types will be specific to that industry. So it'll make the files on the file server look industry specific. So I thought that was neat. But yeah, again, like pretty much any attacker that comes across that is going to have a look. So that, deception is still an easier way to do detection than just chasing the latest TTPs or, whatever new has been added to the MITRE ATT&CK framework.
This one's super timely too, because I don't know if you guys saw this too. I'm referencing all the 0-day news lately, but I think within the last 24 hours, we saw a second critical MOVEit vulnerability has been disclosed. And this is kind of breaking news, I believe, in the last day.
Really?
Yeah, where MOVEit was essentially a file transfer system similar to what you're talking about, protecting from a canaries model, right? Where you put canaries within a file share that's open, and if people take it, it's obviously indicative of someone taking something they shouldn't have access to. Now, the MOVEit flaw is a little different in the sense that it's a vulnerability within a file transfer system that affected, I don't know how many, I think almost 2,000 systems last year, 2,000 different companies last year.
Hopefully some of those are no longer using FTP entirely.
Oh, well, hopefully they're not using MOVEit, but MOVEit found another critical vulnerability 1 year later that's now being attacked in real time as we speak.
Sheesh.
But it just goes to the importance of the canary approach that you're talking about, right? So putting that stuff out there and the ability to detect when someone touches something they're not supposed to touch is a great way of making sure that these files don't get exfiltrated.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough for the company and for any customers of the company. All right. Let's see. What do we have next here? Next is a dumpster fire. So we get to throw up the dumpster fire graphic. But if you have not heard of the Does anybody know how to say his name? I don't
It's
know.
Gili
G-
Ranan.
Okay. Yeah, if anybody's unfamiliar with CyberStarts or the Sunrise model that they use, basically, the accusation here, and I've linked to the original investigative piece from Kalkali's Tech here that you can check out. It's very detailed and basically saying that some CISOs are getting kickbacks for buying certain products that this VC firm has backed. And so Robert Hansen, aka R Snake, threw out some Twitter polls to get some feedback, and some of the results of those polls are pretty much exactly what you would think. But yeah, worth a look, and kind of reminded me of a survey I did back when me and Haroon Mir did a keynote at Virus Bulletin. And part of it was about fake awards. One of those fake awards I actually have behind me here. I created, there it is. I created a fake. It's right next to the the finger. You guys see the?
Oh yes, I see it. Yeah,
the mouth jiggler fingers right there.
The jiggler, yes.
Yeah. So I created a fake company and bought fake awards. And part of that, I did a survey to see how people would feel about if they found out a company, like some of its awards were basically just purchased with a credit card. And this isn't like going down to things remembered and getting something engraved. They're actual companies that make money off of just selling cybersecurity awards, product awards. And the results looked very similar to this. That, if there's anything shady about even just an employee at a company, like people won't want to do business with them. Or at least they say that, as long as they, I could see cases where, maybe you're really, tied into the company, you really like their products or something like that. You'll probably keep on using them. But at least the way people answer the polls, they say they would.
Yeah, this one's tough because it's a gray area, right? It's not as cut and dry as you would think. Although I highly recommend you read the original Calculus piece, which dives into statements and, again, accusations, whether true or false. I'll leave that to the eye of the reader for sure. But accusations where some CISOs were going so far as to sign up for the CyberStarts advisory program, purchase the startup companies that they were now advising and helping grow, purchase that, and then never even deploy it, and literally just spend their company's money on a suite of CyberStarts products and never even deploy those products. Just let them become shelfware, never even attempt to deploy them. And essentially what was happening is these CyberStarts companies were going from 0 to 2 million, arguably the hardest stretch of revenue as a startup to get your hands on, for free, without actually having any real customers, without actually having any real traction in market, and getting to up to 2 million or more of ARR guaranteed, just because they were a CyberStarts company. And so the investigative journalism broke about a week ago now. R Snake did a bunch of additional research and surveys, unofficial kind of surveys on LinkedIn. And the information is pretty telling, right? People are torqued by it. They're torqued by this problem. But here's the thing. It's such a gray area. How much of it is fixable is the problem. Now, the rumor mill's still swirling in behind closed doors. I'm hearing of some CISOs being let go, quietly moving on to find their next role, kind of thing. I'm hearing situations where companies are rapidly turning down funding from CyberStarts. I know of at least 2 CISOs personally who have had their face mugshots removed. I shouldn't use that word in this scenario. Their headshots. Their headshots. I did not mean that. That was a Freudian slip. But their headshots are removed from the CyberStarts website, from the advisor list, and they're disavowing their connections there. So this is still a breaking story, and the problem is it runs deeper than just CyberStarts, right? It runs way deeper, because if you really talk to a number of CISOs that are very well-known CISOs, they do advise young startups quite frequently. And even if you recuse yourself as a CISO from the buying decision, you say, hey, I'm invested in that company, either I own shares or I'm an advisor, whatever, I can't make this call. Adrian, you work for me, you make the call. Here's the company, you figure it out. Right there, there's already influence occurring, right? And so where do you draw the line on that scenario to say even that's an unacceptable level of influence, right? So I don't know where to draw the line. I don't know where to tell people to draw the line. I think it's up to everybody on their own to determine where their conflicts of interest lie and how much of that they want to disclose to the world. But this is still a continuing to break dumpster fire style situation. I just don't, we may not, it may just get buried as we move forward. I think what's going to happen here is most of it'll just be swept under the rug, buried. You'll see a few people find new jobs and that's it.
That's one of the polls that he throws in there is he thinks there is some potential, and apparently other people think this also, that it could actually get worse. That revealing the fact that some security leaders, some buyers are getting kickbacks, might make others do it. Because the program seems to work. As long as people aren't getting arrested, why wouldn't other folks also start doing it?
So let me ask you a question, Adrian. Your comparative that you opened with about the awards. If you turn around and look at the name of that award company that gave you that award, are they still in existence and are they still selling awards after being outed in your research?
Nope. Yeah, they're still there. Sure.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. Nobody. I have a gut feeling this gets swept under the rugs. A few people will get terminated, will get reprimanded, and then this will just continue behind closed doors in a less overt way.
I think this is a little more serious than fake awards, though.
I agree with you. I'm just tracing it back to your original opening statements. But I do think that majority of this is going to just kind of fade away in the next news cycle, unless we find some real smoking guns. An investigator finds some real smoking guns and outs true dirty play. Then I don't even think it lasts another cycle.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Which is sad. It's sad.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Let's see. So some more stuff coming out, some insider insight on the culture within Microsoft when they made all the decisions that eventually led to the breach that resulted in a CSRB report. So China hit Microsoft to get access to the messages, the email of a handful of companies. And the CSRB report came out. Microsoft said, we're sorry, we're really focused on security now. And this is just some additional insight from an insider on what things were like at Microsoft over those last 10, 15 years when things seem to take the wrong turn. So some interesting insights there.
Wow. Just like everything else, it comes and goes in waves, right? Yeah. I mean, the Microsoft secure computing memos back in the day, then they got really good at security for a while, and then they fell off the cliff again. And, it just comes and goes.
I mean, they've built entire companies within Microsoft since then, right? Like Azure was basically a new company within Microsoft. Did a lot of acquisitions. You get new people. Then I mean, it's something you've got to work hard at. If you want to keep the culture, you want to keep good cybersecurity as a value of the company. If you're not actively working at that, that's going to fade away. People are going to forget about it. Different incentives are going to take over.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat. There's a lot of meat and a lot of crunch in this article. It's a very in-depth piece. I highly recommend taking a chance. I'm going to put it in my don't skim, you got to read list. So I'll probably read this one in depth tomorrow and spend the morning on it. But it looks really, really interesting.
A lot of tea.
Yes, a lot of tea to be seen here. A lot of flashbacks to all. It just reminds me of all the same stuff when everybody was ripping Microsoft in 2002, 2003, 2001, right?
Yeah.
Same problems. And then they'll fix it. They'll get better, and they'll get better for another 8-10 years, whatever it is, and then they'll screw up again.
Yeah. The next one here is kind of for the founders out there. I don't think anything here is really kind of new news to anybody who's read into startup takeaways. Do's and don'ts startups, particularly on growing and marketing and things like that. But yeah, interesting in that it's outside the cybersecurity space, and it's I just found it, and there's some interesting conversations about these takeaways on LinkedIn. So I got involved with some of the discussions there. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that some of these issues exist outside cybersecurity. Certainly we do have some unique ones. I don't know if the whole CyberStarts thing is a thing outside cybersecurity or not, but
That's a good question.
Yeah.
If
But
it's
yeah,
not,
sometimes
maybe I need to start a VC firm outside of cybersecurity and make a lot of money.
I'm sure it is. This is not unique.
You heard it here first, investigators.
Nope,
Yeah.
not doing
SBC.
it. I promise you, I'm not doing it.
This is not unique to cybersecurity. I mean, look at the whole medical field. There have been a ton of documentaries and movies and books on, what happens in the prescription industry with, these pharma companies going and basically paying off doctors, paying off clinics to use their drugs and promote them. There are a couple of really good movies about it, actually. So no, it's definitely not a unique situation. Where there's money, there's fraud.
Yeah.
Where there's money, there's corruption. It's
to take the conversation back to this article. It's a great article, and I get these things all the time because of my teaching at the University of North Carolina. I literally teach what this article is talking about, right? So I get these in my inbox all the time in newsletters and whatnot. What I like about this version, however, is one, it was done as a panel, so you got a lot of cross-person insights. It's not one person's view into his or her journey. It is a handful of people giving multiple views into their journeys. And what the author did that I love is he's made it very, very consumable. So if you're a founder out there and you're a wannabe founder, a soon-to-be founder, read these things, because these things will give you little tidbits of things you had never thought about, right? Like, if you think you have product market fit, you don't. It's too early. Like, just that quote alone could help you immensely as a founder. So I really like the way this one's written. As at a minimum, this is read the bullets. Just read the bullets, and you will learn a ton from this article.
And just for context, this comes from a conference called BuildCon that he attended. And you can see if you look in the right-hand side, if you've loaded the link there, at least for me, my comment comes up first, maybe just because I'm logged into LinkedIn, but I've got the snarky comment in there. Who cares about product market fit when there are acquirers willing to buy your startup pre-Series A because you used AI in your marketing? So that was my take.
Snarky. Adrian is the resident snark bot.
Yeah. Grumpy take.
Grumpy take. I love it.
All right, so next here we've got a group of 3 AI essays. The first one I highly recommend. This is basically a written version of the talk that Bruce Schneier gave at RSA, which I caught about 10, 20 minutes of it live. It's really good. It's really, he kind of thinks about like it's almost fiction. It's like he's just imagining like here's some of the unintended consequences of letting some of this get out of control, and definitely comes up with some scenarios that had not occurred to me. So it's called How AI Will Change Democracy, and I've also linked to the video if you'd rather watch it. I think the written essay here and the video both hit the same highlights.
Yeah, Bruce is one of the OGs. He's one of the OGs. From way back when I was entering the field, Bruce was already leading the charge in so many areas, right? He's led this field for 30 plus years. And so when somebody has that level of experience and has that level of understanding and depth, this kind of keynote is just going to resonate. It's just going to be on point. It's a must read.
And how far does his blog go back? I'm not even sure if there's an easy way to find that.
Oh goodness, I have no idea. But I mean, I remember looking up to Bruce Schneier when I was 22, 23 in the late 90s, living out in California. He was, he was everything to crypto back then. And he's
applied cryptography.
He was the man at applied crypto, and he was all over the place. So there's something to be said for that level of having seen it, right? And having lived it and been involved in the creation of it.
Yeah, and so his essay and his talk is more of a warning, and then the next one from Marc Andreesen is why AI will save the world. And this one I think is I don't. It seems like he's trying to write the same kind of thing as his why
It was.
software is eating the world. But I think he misses the mark here. I think it comes off as kind of self-serving, given some of his investments, and I don't think we're anywhere close to being able to make some of the predictions or claims that he's making. You know, almost everything he's talking about, we're seeing AI fall far short of what he's suggesting it's going to do. Like more than an assistant, like AI being a teacher in a lot of these cases.
Here's the really killer thing about this article, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, Adrian, but it's a year old. He actually released this last June. And that's interesting in and of itself, right? So the article, because I remember reading it last summer as an article,
June 6th.
Well, it's almost exactly a year old. But it's actually really pertinent that you brought it up almost a year later, because now you can look back at his predictions for AI and realized how self-serving and truly how involved in the market he was, informing the market here. And so you can kind of look at it under a really unique lens when you have the hindsight of a year here. Hindsight yet again.
What was most interesting to me is if we tie this back to the Gilles Renan model story, we have a very similar approach to wanting to create a market in this case versus create a product or build a product or promote a product. You're knitting your eyebrows at me.
I'm waiting to see where you take this one.
That's it. I mean, you've got somebody who's very well known for making predictions, has a history, has a reputation, came out with this huge thing however many years ago, the software is eating the world, and now invests, right? We've got tons of money going into his pockets in certain areas. So you were just saying this is self-serving. Yeah, I think it's very much along the same lines. Just because he's not taking a specific product, which, we never know, but he's taking a market to hype it up to a level where it benefits.
Maybe not. I'm going to take a counterpoint on that, Katie, because at the time he put this out a year ago, ChatGPT had been out for 7 months. So but he was still
trying to grow a market, and look at all the investments in AI, and any company with AI, and I'm going to use the air quotes again, has been killing it while other companies are struggling for funding.
Yeah, but we still don't know whether that's actually going to return a positive investment. That could be an overhyped market where he actually loses his ass because it's hyped too high.
That's my point. He's the hype man.
The difference is in the Gilles Renan situation, we have CISOs spending company money fraudulently to buy product. It's not a hype situation. Right. It's literally a purchasing and then shelving just to get your own kickback. It's a straight kickback model. There's something else when you are actually you could even go so far as to say that this is just marketing. He's marketing markets that he's invested in. He's not necessarily catching kickbacks in the way you're talking about. So I think it's a stretch to make that connection. However, the question that I have is, was he right in most of his statements? And I don't think we've quite seen enough time yet. 12 months isn't quite enough time to determine whether there's going to be. I think you got to wait another year. I would love to, 12 months from now on this show on a Thursday in June of 2025, let's bring this article back up and determine exactly how right he was with some of these predictions.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. And then the next AI essay is just completely off the rails. So we've got one that's kind of focused on bad stuff that could happen because of AI. Another one trying to convince us that just tons of amazing good stuff is going to happen with the AI. And then the third one is basically just saying it's all bullshit. and I think all of these are worth reading and are probably kind of fun to read back to back. They're all long reads. I think you're looking at 15, 20 minutes to get through each of these three.
Yeah.
But yeah, some very, very different perspectives here.
Katie
so the first
pointed this one out to us last week. I saw this, and man, it is a fantastic read. It is so funny. It is so
it's
funny.
Interesting because the first two of these, though they're kind of opposed, right? One saying here's some negative stuff that can happen, another saying it's going to do amazing stuff. At least they both agree that it's very impactful, that it's very powerful. And then the third one's just saying, nah, it's all bullshit. It's smoke and mirrors. There's just like a lot of stuff that's
well, but he is very, very clear to say that it is all smoke and mirrors, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think he doesn't like the hype. Back to your point, Adrian, and yours, Katie. I just think he just doesn't like the hype machine that's overlaid itself upon it and wants it to.
He also says very clearly that what people are calling AI, what people are pushing as AI, what people are trying to claim is AI is not, in fact, AI.
He's saying stop with the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny. I tend to be grumpy.
I can say definitively this was my favorite article of the last 10 years. I generally get bored reading really long articles, which is hypocrisy at best. But this one, it was fantastic. I wish I had written it. I wish I knew this man personally. I loved every second of it.
I don't know if you noticed too, he's got a series of these, right?
Yep.
Like these.
He's got some other
let's just
rants.
call them rants, right? They're rants, essentially. This one, for those that don't know the article, is I will effing pile drive you if you mention AI again. That's the title of the article. And the rest of it is just as funny and just as inflammatory. And his writing style and prose is fantastic.
It's great.
And the best thing about it is, this isn't the only topic he's done this to. He's done this to a absolute ton of them. I'm struggling to find a couple of titles off of his list here. Oh, here we go. I will effing haymaker you if you mention agile again. He's just got a number of these things where I will effing drop kick you if you use that spreadsheet. Like this writer is just funny. And the cool thing is he's cutting through the hype. He's cutting through the noise. And he's going, here's the way I see it. Here's the reality that I'm living in and day out as a user of a spreadsheet, a data scientist, or whatever it is that he's ripping apart. And I think it's just a great job of grounding the reader in what could potentially be today. He doesn't really talk about tomorrow, and he doesn't really talk about the past. He literally talks about what's real in the moment, and that's what makes it a good read.
Yeah. All right. So the last two stories are also about AI. Sorry, that's just the world we live in now. But I like this tweet from Dare Obasanjo on Twitter, basically talking about something that I think we talked about a lot in the early days when we were trying to think about where large language model generative AI was going in the enterprise, and realizing a lot of it's a data problem. Data hygiene problem, data governance problem. Like if you don't have your data shit together, you're not going to have a good time with this technology. And it's basically what he's saying in this tweet. He says companies are finding out that the ability to get useful answers out of AI chatbots about your business requires you to have accurate data that is easily accessible to it. So you aren't just adopting AI, you got to do data management as well. And then he's got a follow-up tweet says, besides the hallucination problem, you now have to ensure the chatbot knows where to go to find the canonical source of last year's revenue numbers and doesn't just grab whatever freaking revenue numbers it finds from some random document or spreadsheet in email, which, knowing how messy data is in an organization could be some other company's revenue numbers.
So I'm gonna wrap this back to a conversation we had at the start of today. It's a conversation I've given many times, and I'm not going to give the original thought of that conversation, but I will connect it back to the data fabric problem. The data fabric problem of having an ingestion of all important cyber asset event data into a single database that allows you to do queries is the exact problem he's identifying just for a cybersecurity version of the problem. He's identifying a business relative version of the problem, saying, where do you get all the data? Is there a data fabric for your business that pulls all pertinent data, that pulls in all action, revenue and pertinent data from a sales cycle and your marketing trees and all of the different data components that make up your business? Is the hygiene there? The same thing applies to cybersecurity. Is the data there? Is the hygiene there? And then you need a fabric to pull it all together. That's what he's essentially bringing around.
I mean, AI is almost like a toddler, right? Like you can ask a toddler for something, but if you're not specific enough, they'll just come back with whatever resembles what you asked for. Like those aren't my glasses. You asked me to get glasses. I don't know.
The funny thing is they'll come back with confidence.
Wear glasses in the house. Where'd you get these?
They'll come back with confidence too, right? The toddler will come back and go, here's your glasses. They never saw them on your face. They don't even look like glasses. They're pink and you've never worn them in your life, but they're confident they're yours, right? That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and it will be that like I'm joking. I've never even seen those glasses before. Where'd you find those? How'd you find those in this house? I've never seen them before. It'll
hallucinate,
happen.
And it'll hallucinate and say, "I found them on your head, Dad."
Well, not even hallucination. Like one of the things we talk about with using AI within the enterprise, because data hygiene is so difficult. Like when Sony Pictures got breached. There was a spreadsheet that had the salaries of everyone who worked at Deloitte, or like a huge number of people who worked at Deloitte. So all of a sudden we saw these news articles about pay inequity between men and women at Deloitte because Sony Pictures got hacked. How does that make any sense? And it had to have been somebody who was HR at Deloitte, maybe came to Sony Pictures and brought files with them. I don't know how it happened, but somehow some other company's data made it in there, and we're going to start seeing these large language models, AI, finding this stuff. And people, where did you find this? This is not ours. This shouldn't be in our house.
I found it.
And that one could have been a squirrel story, almost as funny as that got. But we do have a squirrel story also that in the intro I pitched as an exclusive on ChatGPT 5. This is satire, but I guarantee you 50% of your friends and family you send to this probably won't realize it's satire until maybe they get halfway through it or so.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's saying, well, if ChatGPT was high school or college level intelligence, ChatGPT 5 is going to be PhD level intelligence. So then they take all the PhD jokes you know and love and go nuts with it.
Oh, this is absolutely great. GPT-5 has an improved neural network architecture, enhanced security, and the following new features. $193,634 in student loan debt, a number of dead plants, parents who want to know what they're getting their grandchildren. Like, this is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Daily reminders that GPT-5 was once a gifted child.
Yeah, it's very funny because like as these things kind of seem more human, I think this is a great take to
this is good.
Make it too human. Like what if it also got our flaws?
I just love the PhD digs. That's fantastic.
Will it steal jobs? Question. Answer. GPT-5 is unlikely to destabilize the job market as it is overqualified for most positions, while at the same time lacking any marketable skills.
It'll look for a job for 1 year and before it gives up and drives an Uber.
I will warn you against sending this to any actual PhDs because this may be too real.
Oh yeah, don't go there.
They may not.
Oh no, I'm sending it to everybody I know with a PhD. It's getting trolled tomorrow.
You send this to your PhD friends. It's on you. Okay, they
Let's go.
May not
it's happening.
The mirror that they look in. All right, and with that, that is another episode 366 in the can. Thank you so much, Katie and Tyler, for joining me today. As always, a lot of fun. And big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. We will be back next week, and I'll have a more complete studio.
I don't think we'll be back next week. It's July 4th.
We're off next week.
We will not be back next week. Next week is a holiday.
Everybody in the U.S., everybody in the U.S. have a great holiday. Everybody not in the U.S., sorry.
Could you imagine if it was just me here? Not like without somebody to catch my mistakes.
You and ChatGPT 5.
But
Bye.